The world is full of mysterious things and amazing coincidences. Hello guys. What's up? It's Lucy here. And today we are going to look amazing coincidences in the history. Number 1. James Dean's car curse. In September 1955, James Dean was killed in a horrific car accident whilst he was driving his Porsche sports car. After the crash, the car was seen as very unlucky. When the car was towed away from accident scene and taken to a garage, the engine slipped out and fell onto a mechanic, shattering both of his legs. Eventually the engine was bought by a doctor, who put it into his racing car and was killed shortly afterwards, during a race. Another racing driver, in the same race, was killed in his car, which had James Dean's driveshaft fitted to it. When James Dean's Porsche was later repaired, the garage it was in was destroyed by fire. Later the car was displayed in Sacramento, but it fell off its mount and broke a teenager's hip. In Oregon, the trailer that the car was mounted on slipped from its tow bar and smashed through the front of a shop. Finally, in 1959, the car mysteriously broke into 11 pieces while it was sitting on steel supports. Number 2. The 21st, a bad day for King Louis. When King Louis of France was a child, he was warned by an astrologer to always be on his guard on the 21st day of each month. Louis was so terrified by this that he never did business on this day. Unfortunately, Louis was not always on his guard. On June 21, 1791, following the French Revolution, Louis and his queen were arrested in Varennes, whilst trying to escape France. On September 21, 1791, France abolished the institution of royalty and proclaimed itself a republic. Finally, on January 21, 1793, King Louis was executed by guillotine. Number 3. A bullet that reached its destiny years later. Henry Ziegland thought he had dodged fate. In 1883, he broke off a relationship with his girlfriend who, out of distress, committed suicide. The girl's brother was so enraged that he hunted down Ziegland and shot him. The brother, believing he had killed Ziegland, then turned his gun on himself and took his own life. But Ziegland had not been killed. The bullet, in fact, had only grazed his face and then lodged in a tree. Ziegland surely thought himself a lucky man. Some years later, however, Ziegland decided to cut down the large tree, which still had the bullet in it. The task seemed so formidable that he decided to blow it up with a few sticks of dynamite. The explosion propelled the bullet into Ziegland's head, killing him. Number 4. Twin boys, twin lives. The stories of identical twins' nearly identical lives are often astonishing, but perhaps none more so than those of identical twins born in Ohio. The twin boys were separated at birth, being adopted by different families. Unknown to each other, both families named the boys James. And here the coincidences just begin. Both James grew up not even knowing of the other, yet both sought law enforcement training, both had abilities in mechanical drawing and carpentry, and each had married women named Linda. They both had sons whom one named James Allen and the other named James Allen. The twin brothers also divorced their wives and married other women, both named Betty. And they both owned dogs which they named Toy. 40 years after their childhood separation, the two men were reunited to share their amazingly similar lives. Number 5. A novel that predicted the Titanic's destiny, and another ship that almost followed. Morgan Robertson, in 1898, wrote Futility. It described the maiden voyage of a transatlantic luxury liner named the Titan. Although it was touted as being unsinkable, it strikes an iceberg and sinks with much loss of life. In 1912, the Titanic, a transatlantic luxury liner widely touted as unsinkable, strikes an iceberg and sinks with great loss of life on her maiden voyage. In the book, the month of the wreck was April, same as in the real event. There were 3,000 passengers on the book, in reality, 2,207. In the book, there were 24 lifeboats, in reality, 20. Months after the Titanic sank, a tramp steamer was traveling through the foggy Atlantic with only a young boy on watch. It came into his head that it had been thereabouts that the Titanic had sunk, and he was suddenly terrified by the thought of the name of his ship, the Titanian. Panic-stricken, he sounded the warning. The ship stopped just in time. A huge iceberg loomed out of the fog directly in their path. The Titanian was saved. Number 6. Balun coincidence. A 10-year-old girl named Laura Buxton released a balloon with her name and address on it, which floated 140 miles and landed in the backyard of a house where also lived a 10-year-old girl named Laura Buxton. On the day of the meeting, the two girls wore essentially the same outfit, a pink sweater and jeans. The girls were the same height, which was unusual because they were both tall for their age. They both had brown hair and wore it in the same style. They both had 3-year-old black Labrador retrievers at home, as well as gray pet rabbits. They both brought their guinea pigs, which were the same color and even had the same orange markings on their hindquarters. It was almost as though these two Laura Buxtons were the same person. Number 7. Two brothers killed by the same taxi driver, 1 year apart. In 1975, while riding a moped in Bermuda, a man was accidentally struck and killed by a taxi. 1 year later, this man's brother was killed in the very same way. In fact, he was riding the very same moped. And to stretch the odds even further, he was struck by the very same taxi driven by the same driver, and even carrying the very same passenger. Interesting, right? How could this happen? Number 8. King's Double. In Monza, Italy, King Umberto I went to a small restaurant. When the owner took King Umberto's order, the king noticed that he and the restaurant owner were virtual doubles, in face structure. Both men began discussing the striking resemblances between each other and found many more similarities. Both men were born on the same day, of the same year, that is March 14, 1844. Both men had been born in the same town. Both men married a woman with same name, Margherita. The restaurant owner opened his restaurant on the same day that King Umberto was crowned King of Italy. On the 29th of July 1900, King Umberto was informed that the restaurateur had died that day in a mysterious shooting accident, and as he expressed his regret, he was then killed by an anarchist in the crowd on the very same day. Means both of them died on the same day. Number 9. Mark Twain and Halley's Comet. Did the famous writer Mark Twain predict his own death? Well, if he didn't, then it was a major coincidence. Mark Twain was born on the day of the appearance of Halley's Comet in 1835, and died on the day of its next appearance in 1910. He himself predicted this in 1909, when he said, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it." Number 10. The strange coincidences between Lincoln and Kennedy. Two of America's presidents, namely Abraham Lincoln and John Kennedy, share a multitude of barely believable coincidences. Both were killed from gunshot wounds to the back of the head, both died on a Friday, both died before a celebration. Kennedy was assassinated on the eve of Thanksgiving, Lincoln was killed right before Easter, and each one of them were accompanied by their wife and another couple. But there's more. Both had a friend called Billy Graham, both had 4 children, both had secretaries named after the other. Kennedy's secretary was called Mrs. Lincoln, while Lincoln's secretary was called John, and both of their successors were vice presidents called Johnson. Coincidence is a remarkable concurrence of events or circumstances that have no apparent causal connection with one another. The perception of remarkable coincidences may lead to supernatural, occult, or paranormal claims. There may be person like you with same habit, same behavior and same lifestyle in other part of the world. What do you think about it? That's all for today. Do you liked our video? If yes, then don't forget to like our video, also subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new video.